Welcome everyone to our AMA current cohort edition. I'm Subir Babarwal, part of the UFP administration team at IIHS. And today I'm joined with Smita MB, who is our lead at academics. We like to welcome our audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. We are so happy to have you today with us to learn a little bit more about the UFP program and meet a few of our current cohorts.
And today we're joined by Shravani Bolage, who has a disciplinary background from law, and Devyani Ramamurthy, who has an architecture disciplinary background. Hi guys, I welcome you to the AMA.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for having us.
And Shravani is currently interning at CLPR, Center for Law and Policy Research, and Devyani is currently interning at the IB group.
IBI Group.
IBI group. So over to you guys. So maybe we can start with talking about the UFP and how it is a different program from the other fellowships. So I'll open the floor to both of you. We can just have a chat. Either of you can. Yeah.
Deven, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure, Shravani. So the UFP, speaking from my own experience, I think it's absolutely a program to come to if you feel that you're interested in this thing called the urban and in our cities across scales, whether it's the metropolitan cities or our second or third tier cities. If you feel that you have an interest and you want to work in that space, but you don't really know why you're interested, or you don't really know what kinds of practices there are that happen in this space, because that was me a year ago, right? So I had this absolute interest, but I had no idea what my question was or what my practice in this space could be. So I think this is a great program to come to if you want to find your question and if you want to know what kind of routes are open to you for you to get into. Yeah, that's from me.
Yeah. Um, Actually, very similar to what Devyani said. Like, if you're interested in the term urban, and if you want to know what urban is and what are the urban issues and how to resolve them, you have to, if you want to see to urban through the different perspective, like economics, governance, planning, policy, environment, and many other perspectives. If you want to see to urban through all these lenses, then Europe is the best place to come to. You get new perspective, you get like interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary perspective to look in, to one thing that is urban, and it's always great to have like all this perspective. So yeah, that's from my side.
So both of you come from completely different backgrounds. Like so they mentioned in his introductions. Shravani, you are from the law background, and Devyani, you are from the architecture background, a completely spatial discipline. Shravani from a non-spatial discipline. And of course, we are trying to figure out how to get Vidya also into this conversation. And he comes from a completely different space, which is political science. So, speaking about your backgrounds and looking at where you are now, how has your journey been where the aspects of the UFP has played a role getting you guys from the different backgrounds into this space?
Shravani, do you want to take that first?
And I ask this because
Uh,
I'm always extremely fascinated by how this is happening. And it's amazing to see folks from different backgrounds come into the program.
yeah, yeah. Sita. For me, I have always lived in a small city, and from my college, I shifted to a big city, sort of to Pune. And I was always fascinated about how the governance work for the cities and what kind of policies they create and how these policies get created, what are the aspects in the policies. And I was always interested to know all these things. And
Hey, hi. Hi,
yeah,
Smita.
Hi, Vidya.
Hi, we're now
Hey,
joined
hi.
by
Hi,
Vidya
everyone.
Sagar,
How are
who has a
you?
disciplinary background from political science and is doing his current internship at the Center for Policy Research and Education.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad we
Thanks
figured
so
out
much.
the tech issues so that Vidya could be part of this conversation. So Vidya, we just
Thanks.
went around, just informally chatting on how the UFP is different from some of the other programs. And
Right.
as I mentioned to our audience, Shravani is from a law background, Devyani is from an architecture discipline background, you're from political science, but here you are, all of you are
Mm.
current UFP cohorts in the internship term. So it's
Right.
extremely fascinating for me to see how folks from different backgrounds are coming to this platform. So Shravani was talking about how her legal background in law has kind of helped her, and the different aspects of UFP that is integrating these. So from her disciplinary perspective, so we can kind of go around. So Shravani, sorry for that interruption. So maybe we'll let you complete your thought on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Please,
fine.
Shravani, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was talking about how I was interested in the policy, and as my law background, I was always interested in how this policy and law intersects with each other, and how the law system could be more effective, as well as the policies in the society could be more effective, and how this the structure of all the law can back up the structure of policies. And as much as I have seen on the UFP's website, and I've talked to like past fellows, I got to know that UFP would be a good place for me to understand this intersection and to understand how the policies get structured, how the funds gets to the policies, and I was very fascinated, and yeah, that's how I landed in UFP.
So anything about the UFP that speaks to your journey from your background to, I mean, through the program?
So yeah, in the commons term, we had this whole three union of three subjects: economics, planning, and governance. It made me understand how these three things are like interlinked with each other, and how you cannot like take one aspect out of this thing. And it is really interesting to understand like how policies directly linked with the governance, and planning is something which is very new for me, and it helped me understand this thing. And even in the elective, I had national urban missions as an elective, which helped me understand all the processes of the policies, and it it helped me understand the funding and structure and construction and implementation, and afterwards how it the things happen. So yeah, from the UFP, I got to understand. I got a new lens to look into the policy and law through the different kind of things. So, yeah.
How about you, Devyani?
Hi, sorry, I dropped off for a moment there, but I think I came from the exact opposite end of the spectrum as Shravani. I come from an architectural background, and that was my training. And I joined because I was absolutely fascinated, I think, about this like the relationship of maybe how economics and the economy, how governance, and how infrastructure plays a role in our cities, and what kind of what kind of actors, what kind of interactions happen that lead to certain decisions being taken for our cities. And I think for me as well, the trio of planning, economy, and governance during the Commons term was really, really interesting. Planning was something I was a little more familiar with. But I think the things that we learned about in governance absolutely blew my mind, because I remember sitting in class and constantly writing down questions that were coming to me. And I think this is something that I will say again and again, but the fact that you sit in a class and you write down questions rather than just notes of what the person is saying, right? Because these light bulbs are going off in your head and you're saying, oh, okay, this is related to this. I had a moment, I remember, when I said, you know what, I'm interested in infrastructure and public service delivery. And we're having a conversation on governance and the devolution of powers from the state to the city level. And I'm thinking, oh,
Right.
these two things are related, right? So you're making these connections, you're writing down these questions. Um, and I would say that's one huge asset that you have over here, that you get to see the links between fields which are otherwise considered very separate, but you get to see those fields.
How about you, Vidya? We'd love to hear your perspective as well. Because Devyani comes from a
Yeah,
completely spatial design
yeah,
discipline and making the transition to a non-spatial side of herself. But you don't come from a spatial discipline. You come from a political science background, and you are currently also a PhD scholar. So we would love to hear your perspective on coming into the UFP program and going through the different aspects.
yeah. So am I audible properly,
Yes,
Smita?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks IHS team to inviting us for sharing our experiences, like UFP experience, though we are at learning stage. So for me, if you'll ask, my experience in the part of the UFP program is it's a quite productive in terms of. So I would ask in terms of two lenses. First, the empirically, if you look at the program, you'll find the program contains a different sort of skills which need. I mean, when you are looking the complexity of urban, like you need data skill, media, word lab. So these are the skills which need to be grasped when you are going to theorize, or you are going to explain the complexity of urban first. So the empirically we have been trained in the program that help us to strengthen the method, the especially the rigor of method, which build your foundation to look at that complexity, because urban is complex. That is the foundational philosophy of the program, and the complexity needs to be defined, needs to be theorized, needs to be explained through different lenses, as Devyani and Shravani mentioned that. Devyani comes from the architecture background, Shravani comes from law. So look at like these are the disciplines which contains that complexity. I mean, so for me, the UFP was a kind of bouquet of the different sort of methodological rigor, which helped me to understand the urban as a whole, and at the same time, urban at a very specific level. Like I'm looking at belonging in urban, like educational spaces and all. So it provokes you to think beyond the binaries, not just a gray as white and the black and white. Things are much more deeper, and and the depth. So the UFP provide you to think whatever disciplines you are coming from, whatever disciplinary training you are carrying from your previous educational background, you have that UFP provides the other lanes, the other layer to look at that complexity of urban, and that really helping me to, like, now I'm working as an intern in CPR. So I'm working on the some sort of project, like how different sort of educational spaces in a state level, like regional colleges and state university, who are actively participated in the making a policy level early in the 90s, 20s, and 80s. But we are saying these are the institutions who are at the margin, who are declining. So what's happening in terms of policy making? So urban as a whole and the UFP as a whole, it offers a kind of a bouquet of method, bouquet of thoughts, bouquet of perspective to theorize, to empiricize the urban complexity.
So while you guys were talking, I was just recalling, and I wanted to bring this into the conversation that all three of you again represent different geographies. Devyani from Bangalore, Shravani from Maharashtra, Ahmednagar, a small town, which she's really in love with, fantastic small town perspective there, and Vidya Sagar from Buxar, Bihar. So you guys represent different geographies, but you are also pan-Indian in the sense you came to Bangalore for the program, and now again you are in different spaces for your internship. So I would love to invite you to kind of speak to that and how you hold on to some of these backgrounds, but make it also applicable to the different things that you are embarking on in your trajectories. That is one thing. And the other thing, and I'm absolutely intrigued, is that all three of you had some beautiful project work that you did while you were at UFT. At the same time, you have your own personal passions and interests that you would like to explore. And I'm thinking that even beyond the teaching, learning side of UFT, this adds to a fantastic body of research in India and the global south. Like Vidya, you were talking about some of these education institutions in the 80s, which seem to be on the decline, and trying to find out why and how and what are the different aspects, for example. And Devyani interested in the mobility issues, not just in metropolitan cities, but urban as in everywhere, right? The safety and the mobility issues. So I would love to hear you guys quickly speak on these two things, the geographies that you come from and how that carries towards this body of research and practice that is emerging in India now. I think this is something that is extremely amazing. And again, beyond the teaching learning mandate of the UFP, I think this is something that is, just developing over here. So I'll just leave the floor to you guys. However you want to respond to that, or whatever your thoughts are.
Shravani.
So yeah, as Smita mentioned, I come from a small town, Ahmednagar in Maharashtra. It's a Tier 3 city, and most of the life I've lived there. So yeah, the problems in my cities are very different. They are very basic problems, like Devyani said, like service delivery is a big problem. The governance, the politics in my city, roads, basic infrastructure, all the problems are like very different from the all big cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai. We are struggling for the basic roads, water, pipeline, every single thing. So yeah, when I came to UFP made me understand that what exactly goes into all these things, like in detail. What goes into governance, what goes into service delivery, how these things get constructed, how these things get implemented. So, yeah, it is still very difficult to apply all these things to the small cities because the most of the things that we discussed were about the big cities. But like still, I got some kind of like bits and pieces and some thread to like catch onto and hold on to so that I can go back to my city and work on these kind of things that I really wanted to do. Like we had this identity class where I understood about how this open and closed system works. So I was always this one thing always questioning why the cities are divided on the basis of caste. And that's the question I kept into my mind and I came to UFP. That was the question that I was always fascinated about and always little bit worried about also. Right? With that question I came and in the commons term we had the class of identity where we have been taught about how caste is a closed system and how it affects the urban. So I got some bits and pieces to hold on to so that I can keep thinking about it, I can keep questioning about it, I can keep reading about it. So that after like 10-15 years I can go back to my city with all these experiences of the work and of the UFP and I can implement all these things in my city. So yeah, this is it from my side.
And you just had a fabulous publication now recently, Shravani.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Congratulations on that.
Congrats.
thank you.
Congratulations, Shravani.
Bye.
So Vidya and Devyani, do you want? And that is the
Devyani.
body of work I'm talking about. Shravani is now
Yeah.
adding to that body of very important work that we require, which moves beyond actually the teaching, learning, and the mandates of UFP. It is this larger community of practice that we can all build upon. So yeah. Anyway, over back to you guys.
Yeah, so first, congrats to Shavni on not just one but two publications out this
Yeah.
week. We were so happy to see it on the group. So yeah, to answer your question, Smita, the first one about the places that we come from. I think for me, what I understood through the UFP is that so much of our focus is on large cities, right? And that's also for a reason, which is that maybe that's where the money seems to be, or that's where the interest seems to be, right? But a lot of us would exit our classes thinking, why do we not see more data on smaller cities? Why do we not see the gaps or the inadequacies which are there, which need to be worked on. So I think for me, and in the conversations that I had, I remember a lunch conversation which Ravni actually and another one of our classmates. And, I was talking about transportation and I was talking about a public bus system. And then the conversation turned towards the question of how many of our cities actually have a public bus transport system, right? And so, what are the kinds of systems and infrastructure that we have in our different levels of cities? I think this question was also addressed in our governance classes, where we asked the question of what qualifies as urban and how do you count something as urban, right? So I think to understand the ways in which we count what is urban, the qualifications that we put on different levels of urban, and how that influences the funds that different levels of cities get, or the kinds of institutional structures that different levels of cities get. I think that was quite eye-opening, and it definitely pointed me towards this idea that I personally really want to work on, say, mobility issues or other kinds of service delivery issues in cities across levels and not just our big cities. So I think that was one thing that I really consider a big takeaway from these discussions on geography. And I think about your second point, which is like this body of work that we contributed to and we also got to be a part of, right? And not just the projects that we did at the end, at the very end of the taught portion of the term, but also the practica work that we were a part of. I think it was a stunning body of work that the fellows put out. And this goes back to Vidya's point on the UFP being a bouquet of methods, because I come from from a background where I was told that my only real skill or tool had to be my drawing. And I think it was so wonderful over here to be encouraged to form a question, form an inquiry, take interviews, collect life histories, write. My field notes, when I put them up on a map, were considered to be of value. And I think now in my internship, I confidently walked in and I confidently gave my internship interviews and I told the people I spoke to that, you know what, I'm interested in policy. I'm interested in research. And when they asked me, can you do research? I said yes, because I've taken interviews, I've designed a survey, I've, collected life histories, and I've presented all of this information in this body of work that was not based on my drawing skills. So I think when we speak about the body of work, we also have to speak about the methods that we pick up along the way. And I think both of those things were amazing. So yeah. Over to you, Vidya.
Yeah, even I would like to speak in Hindi. Like a lot of folks who are joining from the northern
Absolutely.
part of India. So, Ishmita, you just mentioned about the geography which we carry. So, अगर हम यूएफपी प्रोग्राम के स्ट्रक्चर को देखें, particularly at the entry level, सो हम इनकरेज करते हैं उन सारे फोक्स को जो रीजनल या वर्नाकुलर मीडियम में अपनी एजुकेशन को पूरी किया है. और आई थिंक दिस इज द पॉइंट और दिस इज द इनिशिएटिव ऑफ आईएचएस. व्हाट श्रावणी ने जो कहा कि ओपन सिस्टम एंड क्लोज सिस्टम, तो जो आईएचएस को जो ओपन सिस्टम बनाता है वो है उसका एंट्री लेवल पे जो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी जो देता है वो स्टूडेंट्स को, एप्लीकेंट्स को, यू कैन राइट योर एप्लीकेशन इन वट एवर मीडियम यू हैव. सो नॉट ओनली सिर्फ जो इंग्लिश मीडियम में पास आउट हैं या जो इनकी पूरी एजुकेशन कॉन्वेंट और उस तरह के एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन से हुआ है, वो तो दे आर वेरी कंफर्टेबल टू राइट और वट एवर लाइक दे रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द एप्लीकेशन. बट जो एक एंट्री लेवल पे जो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी जो आईएचएस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है कि आप किसी भी मीडियम को, चाहे आप मराठी हो, चाहे आप कन्नड़ा हो, चाहे आप कोई भी मीडियम के हो अपार्ट फ्रॉम इंग्लिश, आप अपना एप्लीकेशन लिख सकते हैं. और ये जो स्ट्रक्चर है, जो स्ट्रक्चरल इंटरवेंशन है, वो आईएचएस को और यूएफपी प्रोग्राम को वो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी देता है एकोमोडेट करने के लिए नॉन मेट्रोपॉलिटन लर्नर को, स्मॉल टाउन्स लर्नर को. सो these are the one thing. Secondly, we are coming from very different sort of space or different sort of social locations. lot of fellows coming from different, like people coming from Nanded, people coming from Ahmedabad, from different sort of places they are coming. So when we are coming from a different sort of places, it could be a metropolitan or non-metropolitan small towns, we are carrying the experience of that space, and that experience must be articulated whatever you are learning in the program. Like if Abhijit is working on the small, like coming from Nanded, and he is working on the some water system, तो अभिजीत का जो एक्सपीरियंस है नांदेड़ का, श्रावणी का जो एक्सपीरियंस है अहमदनगर का, मेरा जो एक्सपीरियंस है बिहार का बक्सर का, वो आर्टिकुलेट हो रहा है जब हम किसी प्रोग्राम को डिजाइन कर रहे हैं, किसी प्रोजेक्ट को डिजाइन कर रहे हैं, तो क्योंकि वो एक्सपीरियंस इंपॉर्टेंट है. और इफ UFP curriculum, if you look at the UFP curriculum, we have a story from the book. I mean, especially the city and literature part. We have read about the Raipur, other small towns. But though it is not as adequate, and it need to be more, in terms of we need to in terms of structural intervention. I would suggest in terms of curriculum, that even that's my project which I am working on, my space belonging and learning experience of IIHS. So स्मॉल टाउन्स के स्टोरीज को भी हमें उतना ही स्पेस देना पड़ेगा जितने मेट्रोपॉलिटन बिग सिटीज के हैं, क्योंकि अर्बन इज नॉट अबाउट ओनली मेट्रोपॉलिटन. Urban is about the whole, like small Bhagalpur is also part of the urban. Ranchi is also part of the urban. Vijayawada is also part of the urban. So how we are going to build a pedagogical space where we can accommodate the learner from the non-metropolitan spaces, learner from small towns, and that I think UFP did brilliantly, excellently.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it also shows the kind of expansion that you guys have gone through, right? And there's something I'd like to also would like you guys to highlight is that the kind of soft skills you pick up from each other, and these kind of arguments that happen in the classroom, outside, in your Zolo space, and how these kind of spaces sort of keep transcending, and these conversations keep expanding your understanding of the other.
I mean,
Yeah.
actually, to chime in there, this speaks to a lot of our applicants who are asking why is it a residential program, and why is it only on campus? Can't this 9-month program why can't it be conducted only purely online? So we have been answering a lot of the applicants and telling them that this is on campus, in person, full time, residential, because there are people from all backgrounds, not just discipline, but as you guys are speaking to the geographical diversity, but a lot of different skills. And when you are together, as Subhay was asking you, there's a lot of soft skills, there's a lot of other skills that you tend to pick from each other, the vocabulary, language. But since you are, just in the program and still going through, we would love for you to speak to that actually, and kind of assure our potential applicants that this is something that is valuable for them to become cross-disciplinary in their career trajectory maybe. So I'm kind of putting some pointers that I know, but I would love for you to speak from a learner's perspective.
Vidya, you want to take that?
No, I'll add on
हमारी
later on.
audience is very engaged since the time you've said कि आप हिंदी में वार्तालाप कर सकते हैं.
Sorry, Subhay.
आपका पर्सपेक्टिव चाहिए हमको, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग my Hindi is very bad, but I'm trying. But they want to know what we will get out of being with everybody.
So स्मिता, फिर से मैं वही अपने जो इनिशियल जो मेरा रिमार्क था प्रोग्राम को लेके उस पे ही आऊंगा मैं, कि इस पूरे प्रोग्राम को मतलब जो स्ट्रक्चर है उसको पहले मतलब उसको थोड़ा सा सेपरेटली मैं से थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. हमारे पास सोशल साइंसेस के, हमारे पास आइडेंटिटी एंड सोशल प्रैक्टिस है, प्लानिंग, इकोनॉमी एंड गवर्नेंस है, वर्ड लैब है, स्किल GSL लैब है, देन डेटा लैब है, सो मीडिया लैब है. सो ये जो सारे जो स्किल्स हैं, इन स्किल्स का अगर हम यूटिलाइजेशन देखें इन लार्जर लाइक रिसर्च इन ओरिएंटेशन, तो like if Shravani is working the migrant woman, Devyani is working the mobility, transportation mobility. They both, I mean, I think श्रावणी और देवयानी दोनों को एक empirical validation claim करना पड़ेगा जब हम उस problem को बता रहे हैं तो. और ये empirical validation कहाँ से आएगा? जब हम data skill lab, सर्वे डिजाइन, इस तरह के जो स्किल्स हैं वो सीखे रहेंगे. वो उनका एटलीस्ट एक्सपर्टीज तो नहीं है, बट उतना फैमिलियर हम होते हैं कि उस स्किल को, उसको कैसे यूज करना है, कैसे एसपीएस यूज करना है, कैसे डेटा का एनालिसिस करना है. और आई थिंक जो पूरी टीम है, चाहे वो डेटा, कभी कभी लगता है अगर सोशल साइंस बैकग्राउंड से आता हूँ तो मुझे जब डेटा स्किल में बैठता हूँ तो लगता है कि यार ये क्या पढ़ा रहे हैं, बट बाद में रियलाइज होता है कि वो क्वांटिटेटिव जो मेथड है उसका क्वालिटेटिव मेथड के लिए जब मुझे सब्सटेंशियल आर्गुमेंट बनाना है क्वालिटेटिव किसी रिसर्च क्वेश्चन का, उसके लिए मुझे क्वांटिटेटिव एक वैलिडेशन देना पड़ेगा. एंड दैट वैलिडेशन कम फ्रॉम द डेटा एनालिसिस ऑफ डेटा वट एवर यू आर गोइंग टू कलेक्ट. इट कुड बी क्वालिटेटिव, इट कुड बी क्वांटिटी, बोथ. तो जो भी सॉफ्ट स्किल हैं, अब अगर वो मीडिया लैब है, हम बिंदु का जो प्रोजेक्ट था, बिंदु ने पूरी सिटी में एक सिंबॉलिक इमेज को उसके थ्रू उसने पूरी सिटीज को एक्सप्लेन किया. So that comes from that skill which UFP provide. Example, word lab. Whatever you are going to learn, whatever you are going to do in the program, it must be articulated for the larger mass. What we call is a grey literature. Not only the urbanization journal and the Routledge and Sage journal for the academic audience. We need to bring the stuff for the non-academic audience. And how it would be how is it possible? It will be possible to the public pieces. Like Shravani wrote 2 pieces in a round table and her own institutions. So these are the skills. Like what lab provide you different sort of method, like how we are going to review your article, how we are going to do peer review. So these are the skills. I think these are these are the defining characteristics of the program. That is skill lab which IIHS have. These are, I think, the defining and the most important characteristics of the program. So, कोई भी इस प्रोग्राम को अप्लाई करे, चाहे वो इंग्लिश मीडियम का हो या नॉन इंग्लिश मीडियम का हो, वो स्किल उसको हेल्प करेगा. किसी भी डिसिप्लिन से आए वो, अगर वो क्वालिटेटिव मेथड से आता है तो उसको सर्वे डिजाइन, जो एथनोग्राफिक मेथड के जो स्किल्स हैं वो हेल्प करेगा फील्ड में काम करने के लिए. अगर आप क्वांटिटेटिव मेथड से ट्रेंड होके आ रहे हैं तो आपको डेटा स्किल लैब है, और जो दूसरे स्किल लैब है वो हेल्प. अगर आप विजुअल मेथड से ट्रेंड हुए हैं, मास कॉम से आ रहे हैं, जर्नलिज्म बैकग्राउंड से आ रहे हैं, तो मीडिया लैब है. मीडिया लैब का स्किल आपको हेल्प करेगा किसी एक छोटी सी डॉक्यूमेंट्री को बनाना, माइग्रेंट वर्कर पे या किसी लेबर माइग्रेशन पे. तो दीज आर द स्किल, आई थिंक these are the powerful skills. Especially GSL. Look at the GSL. मतलब I am just so passionate about GSL, though it's very hard. I feel it's very hard to me. Like, but the way people used to work, work with GSL lab, the buffer zone and all, so powerful, Smita. So these are the skills I think everybody who are thinking to become an urban practitioner, they need to inculcate those skills, and that will help to strengthen their whatever disciplinary, whatever you are going to work in an organization, research institution, think tank, wherever you're going to work.
तो सबके साथ when you are together, then it actually helps, I think, right? Instead of only online, because all of you also started with online classes, but then it went on to in-person.
Yeah.
So you have seen the difference, what happens when it is online and in-person. So in-person, on the campus, being in the classroom, talking, discussing, learning from each other, I think I think a couple of you can share your thoughts quickly on that, and then we'll move on to discussing maybe your internship processes.
Yeah, sure. So absolutely, I think we all did do the first 2 weeks, I think, online. That was at the very start of our term. And the difference that we felt when we came in person, it was something else. And to folks who question why the UFP has to be a residential program, it absolutely must be. It can't be any other way. This is a program where you have to head back after a long day and you have to go back to your community of people, and that community is your class, it is your batch. You will pass around a pressure cooker in Zolo and wonder where the whistle went. That is one kind of learning. You will eat the food that people have cooked, that they have picked up from wherever they have come from. you will have your practica meeting at 9 in the night, and you will, like, it'll devolve into arguments and, debates until 12. But it's really, really important to have that, like that environment where you're constantly being stimulated, you're constantly having these conversations. Um, it's such a big part of the learning. Like two or 3 days ago, I was thinking about, how to write and publish an article. And the first thing I did was call Abhi. And I said, you know what, you've written 2 articles. Tell me about the process, right? And I spoke to him for half an hour. And then he said, hey, why don't you call Pragati? And then I called her. What I was missing was being in that space, living with these people, where I could have just gone to their room and asked them. But that's the point, right? Like, it's so important to be around those people. And I'll just lastly speak about the last 2, 3 days when we were preparing for our for our project presentation. And so many folks had come to campus. Like, the option to work in our room was there, but everyone chose to come into campus, sit together, and work there because it makes a difference. It makes a difference to be surrounded by people and to have those ideas bouncing off. So yeah, it has to be residential. And if you get here, you will see why, and you'll be very happy that you're not going back, to individual places, but you're going back to like a common nest at the end of
And
the
this
day.
is a community that you'll always carry with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would invite our participants, the audience, to drop in questions if you have any questions for our UFP fellows to respond to. So that is a request from our side, and questions or comments, so we can pick that up at the end of our discussion. So I would like to start with Shravani with regard to the internship process. So we went through intense internship process where we started by looking at your backgrounds and so on. So would you like to lead us through the process that you went, and then we can, again, everyone can chime in and respond to their experiences of applying to the internships, and mainly why the internship is such a big part of the learning in the program as an integral part
Okay,
of the
sure.
UFP program.
Yeah. So first, I'll talk about why internship is important part of UFP, because for 7 months you, as like Vidya and Viviani mentioned, we acquire a lot of skills. We acquire a lot of skills not through just a skill labs, but also like practica and project, which is integral part of UFP. We learn about various things over the 7 months. We have like heated argument with each other. We have it's very important to have a space where you can practice this skill, this thing that you have learned for 7 months. We function in these kind of spaces. How our knowledge that we gain in the 7 months, how we can implement that in a actual working space. So I guess it is very important to have the internship after the 7 months of intense program. And to talk about the internship process, it actually starts very early stage, as not as a like internship process, but it starts as a how to make a LinkedIn account, how the CV and CL how to make this thing. So like this small workshop has been conducted to let fellows know how to go about this, and faculty always is there for you to help with all these things. And after that, the actual internship process starts, where you have been given a list of all the organizations. The list is very exhaustive, like it is almost 300 organizations are there. And then you have to figure out what your background is and what you are interested in, and you have to come up with a list of 10. In that process also, like, you have office hours with faculties, they are like always there. They help you to understand what your interests are and what can be the suitable organization for you for the internship. So that comes, and after that, you start making your CV and CL, and it is like whole week. It's like so much of CV, CL, and you just keep writing and editing and asking your fellows like, is it okay? Do you think is it okay? And the fellows really help. Like for me, fellows really help. Like like Devyani was my roommate, so like she really helped me with all this stuff. I'm like always go to Devyani, do you think is it okay? Then there was other fellows who really helped with making CL because this was the first time I was making CL. And after that, like you apply, then you give interviews. I guess like Devyani and Nitya will talk about that in detail. I guess over to you with the answer.
Yes, Devyani.
Yeah, thanks, Vidya. Thanks, Shravani. So yeah, like Shravani said that, that whole process takes you until the interview stage. And I remember being really, really nervous to the interview because I just felt like I don't give interviews well, because, I will have at any point in time 5 different things that I want to say or 5 different ideas that I want to express, and I just don't know how to put them across. And even at this stage, the faculty are there for you to reach out to. I remember, having an office hour with Gautam and just saying, "I think I'm going to do this interview terribly." And he said, "Okay, let's break this down. Let's work through it. Why do you think you're going to give this interview terribly, right?" So I spoke to him about it, and like he gave me great advice on how to like structure my thoughts, how to get my thoughts across to the interviewer as well, right? And it paid off because when I gave my interviews, of course it was difficult. Of course I was nervous, but I was able to put that advice into practice. And I think with each interview, I became more confident. And I think it was also something that I picked up from a fellow of ours, from Matthews, who said that, you have to enjoy your interview. You have to have fun. And I remember that week, right, when everyone was giving interviews every day, and like Shravani as my roommate, I remember she had like 3 or 4 interviews in a single day, and everyone's nervous, everyone's getting stressed. But at that point, like your community, like your fellows will step in, they will be there, they will like support you through it. You have your faculty to turn to as well. And I think all of these inputs become like a support system. And then you get through the interview stage, you get through that phase, you give your interviews, you keep learning with each one. And that was my experience of it, of the interview. So over to you, Vidya.
Yeah, so पहले हमें ये देखना पड़ेगा कि रैशनैलिटी क्या है इंटर्नशिप का. व्हाट्स द रैशनल बिहाइंड टू डिजाइन द प्रोग्राम टू कंटेन इंटर्नशिप. सो 7+2 का जो ये पूरा प्रोग्राम है, आप 7 मंथ आप मेथोडोलॉजिकली डिसिप्लिनरी ट्रेंड होते हैं आप यूएफपी में. फिर 2 महीने आप इंटर्नशिप के लिए डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आप जाते हैं, ज्वाइन करते हैं. तो जो 7 महीने आप सीखते हैं, जो भी स्किल है, जो भी मेथड है, तो वो 2 चीज प्रोवाइड करता है. पहला ये करता है कि वो ओपन करता है बाकी लेयर्स को समझने में. अगर मैं पॉलिटिकल साइंस बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा हूं तो मुझे वो 7 मंथ का ट्रेनिंग एक स्पेस देता है जहां मैं सीख पाऊंगा कि बाकी के प्लानिंग का क्या इश्यू है, अनुज प्लानिंग को कैसे देख रहा है, या देवयानी मोबिलिटी को कैसे देख रही है, या श्रावणी के लिए क्या कंसर्न है, या वो जो डिस्कोर्स पढ़ाया जा रहा है यूएफपी में, वो सिवाय एक तो आप अपने डिसिप्लिन से आ रहे हैं, लेकिन जो बाकी के डिसिप्लिनरी ट्रेनिंग है जो 7 महीने में आपको दी जाती है, वो आपको एक दूसरा इंटरेस्ट बिल्डअप करता है. अगर तो बहुत सारे ऐसे भी फोक्स हैं जो कि बहुत अलग तरह के डिसिप्लिन ट्रेनिंग से आ रहे हैं, बट वो इंटर्नशिप बहुत डिफरेंट तरह के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो 7 महीने की जो ट्रेनिंग है वो एक अलग इंटरेस्ट भी आपको देता है, एक अपॉर्चुनिटी देता है, एक अलग तरह का इंटरेस्ट आपको आप बना सके और उस तरह के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम कर सके. So I think this is the rationality of the designing the program being a part of the internship. So अब जब इंटर्नशिप हम ज्वाइन करते हैं, जो भी जिस तरह के, अब चाहे थिंक टैंक हो, चाहे रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूशन हो, या कोई पॉलिसी इंस्टीट्यूशन हो, तो 2 चीज. एक तो नेटवर्क हम अपने प्रोग्राम में बनाए हैं. यूएफपी के विद इन IIHS वी हैव आवर ओन नेटवर्क. बट नॉलेज जो है, वो नेटवर्क जितना बड़ा होगा उतना नॉलेज और उसका आपका जो एक्सपीरियंस वो बड़ा होगा. तो जैसे ही आप किसी बड़े थिंक टैंक, बड़े रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूशन या कोई बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आप उसके पार्ट बनते हैं, तो कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैसे फंक्शन करता है, सीपीआर कैसे फंक्शन करता है, या जो वीगो में अनुज ज्वाइन किए हैं और भी जो फोक्स ज्वाइन किए हैं, वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैसे फंक्शन करता है, या जो WRI में कुछ काम कर रहे हैं, तो वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का स्ट्रक्चर क्या, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जब हम डिफरेंट स्टेक होल्डर के साथ बातचीत करेंगे, क्योंकि वो पैनोरमा बड़ा है. अभी आप 30 और 35 के बीच में आप अपने नॉलेज को शेयर कर रहे थे, अपने एक्सपीरियंस को शेयर कर रहे थे. अभी वहां पे 3500 स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं और वहां पे लोग हैं, तो वहां कैसे डील करेंगे आप. तो जो रियल लर्निंग है वो होता है जब आप जाते हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करते हैं, कि उस प्रेशर को, उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल स्ट्रक्चर को कैसे समझेंगे आप, क्योंकि आपको एक्चुअल में आप प्रैक्टिशनर है तो आपको प्रैक्टिस के लिए इंस्टीट्यूशन में जाना पड़ेगा। तो इंटर्नशिप का जो एक मेजर जो ऑब्जेक्टिव है वो भी ये भी है कि जो भी प्रैक्टिशनर हम प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं उनको 7 महीने ट्रेनिंग दे के वो रियल वर्ल्ड में जाएं, देखें कि रियल वर्ल्ड जो है, रियल जो चैलेंजेस उसको कैसे डील कर रहा है, कैसे उसको एड्रेस किया जा रहा है, जो इंस्टीट्यूशन जो इन्वॉल्व है उसमें, चाहे वो सीपीआर हो चाहे कोई भी इंस्टीट्यूशन हो। तो आई थिंक द यूएफपी विच प्रोवाइड्स द 7 month ट्रेनिंग, you are going to some sort of इसको demonstrate that training in the real world. It could be a think tank, it could be a policy institutions, it could be a और वो एक जो अच्छी एक और बात है इंटर्नशिप की, वो इंटर्नशिप आपको एक अलग नेटवर्क देता है। हो सकता है यू आर थिंकिंग टू अप्लाई समवेयर लाइक पीएचडी फॉर समवेयर, और कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम वहां से पढ़ के आया है, he will help you to write your research proposal for that, like you are going to see Berkeley or SOAS somewhere like Oxford you are applying. So that network which you are going to build in the institution where you are interning, that will help you to get some other network, other channels of knowledge.
I think that's a fantastic point, right? So
It is absolutely a very crucial and important understanding of how your networks as well play a very key role in your trajectories and how you move ahead post your program as well, right? But एक चीज मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ, बहुत सारे फेलोज बहुत सारी अलग अलग सेक्टर्स में अप्लाई किए है ना, एंड उसमें वो इंटरव्यू का जो लर्निंग प्रोसेस है वो एक सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन भी होता है कि आपने कहाँ अप्लाई किया, क्यों अप्लाई किया है, और कहाँ why it didn't work out at the end of the day. तो वो सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन I'm sure a lot of you have had because we've had to, आप लोग को रिग्रेट ईमेल्स भी भेजने पड़े एंड एक्सेप्टेंस भी देखना पड़ा. सो व्हाट इज दैट प्रोसेस, वो असेसमेंट कैसे किए कि ना आपको कहाँ इंटर्नशिप के लिए जाना है? बिकॉज आई एम श्योर कि अभी सम ऑफ यू 2 या 3 ऑफर्स आए होंगे. अब ऐसा तो नहीं कि इंटर्नशिप में ना सारे तीन जगह काम कर सकते हो एक साथ. तो वो फाइनल डिसीजन कैसे बनाया आप लोगों को डिसीजन?
क्योंकि भी I also remember many of your classmates applied to completely different sectors and they interviewed all in the different sectors, and that became process for understanding what do I want. So we see that also as an interesting learning experience maybe.
Yeah, I think जब आप जैसे जहां तक हमारे बैच का, हमारे 2020-22 बैच का है, तो आई थिंक जितने भी फेलोज हैं उनको उन्होंने जिन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में अप्लाई किया था, दे गॉट द कंफर्मेशन फ्रॉम द इंस्टीट्यूशंस. सो वी आर वेरी फॉर्चुनेट एंड वी आर वेरी, आई थिंक, a best batch in UFP. I think they got confirmation from everywhere. So वो जो मोमेंट होता है डिसाइड करने का, या जब इनिशियली भी आप जब इंस्टीट्यूशन जो हमारे लिस्ट में होती हैं, जब हम रेक्टिफाई करते हैं कि कहाँ हमें करना है, तो आई थिंक पहला जो होता है वो हम, अगर मैं इंडिविजुअली इसका आंसर दूं तो मेरे लिए मेरा इंटरेस्ट है, क्योंकि मैं सर्टेन रिसर्च बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा हूं, तो मुझे लगा कि सर्टेन तरह के इंस्टीट्यूशन में जाऊंगा तो दैट विल हेल्प टू स्ट्रेंथन माय मेथड, माय रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट एंड ऑल. बट किसी के लिए हो सकता है किसी को डिफरेंट तरह के इंटरेस्ट के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करना हो, तो जो इंटरव्यू का भी प्रोसेस होता है, तो मुझे लगता है कि और रिजेक्शन जैसा कुछ चीज नहीं है कि आप कहीं से रिजेक्ट हो गए तो ऐसा कुछ है. आई थिंक अगर कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन ना भी कह रहा है, इसका मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि यू आर नॉट सुटेबल फॉर दैट एरिया विच यू हैव अप्लाइड. इट मीन्स कि देयर आर सर्टेन लिमिटेशन एंड nobody accommodate everyone. So but it doesn't mean कि you are rejected kind of thing. So I mean जो भी इंस्टीट्यूशंस वगैरह में हमने अप्लाई किया, मुझे लगता है कि ऑलमोस्ट मोस्ट ऑफ द फेलोज ने को कंफर्मेशन आया. तो एक तो यह कि पूरा इंटरव्यू जो प्रोसेस है वो लर्निंग का प्रोसेस है. इंटरव्यू वहां पे ये नहीं है कि हमें कुछ जाके अपना कुछ समथिंग लाइक वी आर गोइंग टू प्रूव दैट ऐसा है, हम ऐसा करने वाला नहीं. आई थिंक वो जो इंटरव्यू का प्रोसेस है बहुत पोलाइट, बहुत जेनरस होता है. मैं अपना इंडिविजुअल एक्सपीरियंस है, वो जनरली हमारे इंटरेस्ट के बारे में पूछते हैं कि क्या तुम्हारा इंटरेस्ट है, क्या देखना चाहते हो, व्हाई यू आर इंटरेस्टेड टू वर्क विथ अस. आई थिंक देयर आर सर्टेन belief we have, there are certain I think objective when we are applying for any organization, we know कि why we are applying. We wrote our cover letter and all. So I think interview का जो process है वो बहुत ही joyful है, बहुत आप you will enjoy that process. और रिजेक्शन को भी हम एंजॉय करते हैं कई बार कि अरे यार ठीक है, नहीं मुझे ऐसे भी बैंगलोर में नहीं था तो मुझे दिल्ली में भी रहेगा तो दिल्ली अच्छा है, सो काइंड ऑफ थिंग. सो इट्स जो मोमेंट होता है डिसाइड करने का, जो सुबह ने पूछा, तो आई थिंक सुबह मेजर जो है, मतलब जैसे अगर मैं अपना इंडिविजुअल एक्सपीरियंस, तो मेरे लिए मेरा इंटरेस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट था कि मैं क्या करना चाहता हूँ. आई वॉज वेरी क्लियर कि मुझे पेडागोजी देखना है, एजुकेशनल देखना है अर्बन में, अर्बन एंड बिलोंगिंग इन ऑल. सो मैंने जो भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अप्लाई किया वो उस तरह के एरियाज पे काम कर रहे थे, उनका रिसर्च चल रहा था. तो और उसमें से मैंने 3 जगह अप्लाई किया, तीनों जगह से कंफर्मेशन आया. बट अब था कि अब और सारे फैक्टर्स हैं कि मुझे न्यास में काम करना है या सीपीआर में काम करना है या जीएफओडी में काम करना है. बट अगर मैं तो मैं वही सेम चीज पे आऊंगा, नेटवर्क. तो अगर मैं न्यास काम कर रहा हूँ किसी इंडिविजुअल फैकल्टी के साथ या जीफॉर्ड में किसी इंडिविजुअल के साथ काम कर रहा हूँ और सीपीआर में काम कर रहा हूँ, तो तीनों अलग अलग तरीके के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है. तो सीपीआर एक बड़ा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जहां पे कई सारे प्रोजेक्ट चल रहे हैं. तो एक ये भी माइंड में होता है कि मे बी इन फ्यूचर आई गेट सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी इन लॉन्गर पीरियड. है कि जो तो आपका लोकेशन है जहां पे इंटरेस्टेड हो काम करने के लिए. कई बार वो होता है कि अगर न्यास बैंगलोर में है और सीपीआर दिल्ली में है, तो आई एम वेरी कंफर्टेबल टू वर्क इन लाइक इन दिल्ली, क्योंकि मेरे अपने यहाँ खुद का नेटवर्क है, मेरा इंस्टीट्यूशन लोकेटेड है. तो आई थिंक एक तो होता है कि आपका मेजर प्रायोरिटी होना, इंटरेस्ट होना चाहिए कि आपका इंटरेस्ट क्या है. सेकंड, एक लॉन्गर टर्म में आपका क्या ट्रैजेक्टरी अपने फ्यूचर को लेके आप क्या सोच रहे हैं, आप रिसर्च में जाना चाहते हैं या प्रैक्टिस में रहना चाहते हैं, किस तरीके का आपका करियर को लेके क्या है. तो ये 2-3 चीजें होती हैं जो बहुत ही आई थिंक इंपॉर्टेंट है इंटर्नशिप को फाइनलाइज करने में, कि कौन सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आपको ज्वाइन करना है और कौन से में ज्वाइन नहीं करना है.
करेक्ट. अभी क्या है कि one of our audience has asked a very specific question.
And we invite all the audience now to also drop in your questions or comments in the box. आपका जो भी comment है या questions है हमारा speakers के लिए, तो please.
So the question is for all 3 of you. Kazi.Neil says, it is a very insightful event. I wish I could have attended such events before I submitted my form. My primary concern is migration and citizenship. How this program would help me regarding those issues. Right? For the audience, हिंदी में हमारे दर्शक पूछ रहे हैं कि उनका प्राइमरी कंसर्न है कि माइग्रेशन और सिटीजनशिप जो इश्यूज है वो कैसे इस प्रोग्राम से फैसिलिटेशन हो सकती है.
I think Shravani,
Shavini,
you are working migration.
Talk about
Yeah.
migration and citizenship.
Yeah, actually, I'll talk about migration, and you can talk about citizenship. So, in the commons term, we had, no, I guess in the foundation term, we had one session on the migration, and it actually specifically talks about migration, like different types of like interstate, intrastate, and how this migration affects these people, how their settlements and all these things. So we have this amazing professor Neeti. So Neeti talks about migration in very detail, and you'll get to learn a lot from that. And apart from that, in the one of the electives, I guess it was an informality, and in informality also we talk about migration in detail. So yeah, this program will to give you some aspect of the migration, and you'll also look into the different lenses to the migration. So yeah.
I think
एक चीज मैं
also
ऐड करना
their
चाहूंगा.
project
Yeah.
discoveries and the practica would also allow them to explore this in a much deeper
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Even like I
Through
would like
various
to talk
projects,
about
they
like
can start
project
exploring
that.
this.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, actually, the project also that you do, like the project we did with Ajivika Bureau for mapping the labor stands in the Bangalore. So we talked to a large group of laborers which came from the different parts of the Karnataka to the Bangalore. Also, like apart from the different states also. So you get to talk to these labor, you get to understand their life experiences, what problems they goes through. So also that thing also gives you a very different perspective about the migration, and migration as not just the activity of one person traveling from the one part of the India to the other part, but it also comes with the insecurity, vulnerability, risk. You think about all these things while doing your practical project. So yeah.
हाँ सुबह आई थिंक मैं श्रावणी के बात को थोड़ा सा एक्सटेंड करूंगा। आई थिंक जिस 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 ऑडियंस ने सवाल पूछा है, मैं उसको उनको मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये प्रोग्राम आपके लिए है। यू मस्ट अप्लाई फॉर यूएफपी। हमारा एक इलेक्टिव होता है यूएफपी में, सदर्न अर्बन थियरी। गौतम भान यूज्ड टू टॉट अस आई थिंक तो जो नाजी का सवाल है कि लेबर और माइग्रेशन और सिटीजनशिप का जो कंसर्न है पूरे ग्लोबल साउथ के लिए आज बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। फर्स्ट, क्योंकि आप अर्बनाइजेशन का मोड देखा है आपने, आपने पैंडेमिक देखा है, तो सिटीजनशिप का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो क्या है कि इक्वल इंटाइटलमेंट मिलेगा स्टेट की तरफ से। तो हमने हमारा जो सदर्न अर्बन थियरी का पेपर था, इलेक्टिव था, जिसमें हमने एक नोट लिखा, मैंने लिखा था पेरिफेरल सिटीजनशिप का। तो कैसे जो पेरिफेरी में लोग रह रहा है, जो सिटीज का जो सिटी में जो पेरिफेरी है वहां पे जो लोग रह रहे हैं, they are also citizen of certain, like any, like if you look at this issue in Indian state, they are also part of the of Indian state, but they have very different sort of treatment, they are differently treated by the state. तो जो भी माइग्रेशन, चाहे वो रूरल माइग्रेशन हो या किसी अदर तरह का, किसी भी दूसरे तरह का माइग्रेशन हो, तो सिटीजनशिप और माइग्रेशन का जो ये रिलेशनशिप है, आई थिंक अभी ग्लोबल साउथ के लिए बहुत ज्यादा बड़ा कंसर्न है। क्योंकि जिस तरीके का लेबर को लेके, अगर गल्फ में जो लेबर जा रहा है इंडिया से, आप देखिए पेंडेमिक उनके साथ क्या हुआ। तो जो सिटीजनशिप का कंसर्न है, तो आई थिंक ये जो प्रोग्राम में कुछ ऐसे इलेक्टिव्स आपको मिलेंगे, कुछ ऐसे आपको स्पेशली कॉमन्स में आपको कुछ ऐसे पेपर मिलेंगे, रीडिंग्स मिलेंगे, जहां पर भी बहुत इन डेप्थ में एंगेज कर पाएंगे उस माइग्रेशन सिटीजनशिप के सवाल को लेकर। और ये आई थिंक पूरा प्रोग्राम में जो स्पेशली जो ये प्लानिंग, इकोनॉमी, गवर्नेंस, इनका जो पूरा डायमेंशन है डिजाइन करने का, वो यही है कि सिटीजनशिप को कैसे समझेंगे। अगर सिटी डिजाइन किया जा रहा है, सिटी के लिए आप एज ए प्लानर आप सिटी डिजाइन कर रहे हैं, तो आप किसके, हु इज प्लानिंग फॉर हुम? आर दे प्लानिंग फॉर द सिटीजन्स हु आर द मार्जिन? So these are the, I think, concern. I think UFP engaged in a depth, in detail. We as a whole, we encourage you to apply for the program.
Thank you for that beautiful response, Vidya. It really brings together a lot of the questions actually that folks seem to have, not just here today on our Instagram live, but also on some of the phone banks that we are having. We are talking to potential applicants and applicants who are in the process of applying. So a lot of them have similar questions. So I'm really glad you spoke to that.
So, as we almost come to an end for our live session, I'll request our current cohorts to send a few words, something to conclude about the entire process and your time at the UFP. For the audience, if you have any more queries, you can write to us, ufp.info@iihs.co.in. So I'll leave it to Shravani. Any last words about your internship, how you're doing, what's going on?
So yeah, I'm doing good. Just for the fellows who want to apply, I just have like few words to say. As I have also said in my testimonial, people from marginalized background, people from small town, please come to this program, apply here. Put your question that you have got from your city. Come with that question to the UFP. Try to find the answers of that question and just go ahead. So I just want people to apply here and learn and go ahead. That's it.
Devyani.
Devyani?
I was just thinking just a few days back that, around this time last year, all of us were putting in our application, and I don't think I could have imagined the kind of growth that I've got in over this year since I joined the program. So to anyone who is applying right now, I mean, I just want to tell you that you have absolutely taken the right decision. This is a place where every day you will wake up and you will be excited to go to class because you will have readings that you are ready to discuss. There are conversations that you want to have. There are questions that you're trying to find, and every day, every class will point you in some direction. You'll be confused, or you'll be lost, or you will be angry because you thought something should have been this way but it's not that way, or you'll be excited, but you will keep growing because you will keep getting questions and you will keep making connections between fields, between practices, between methods. You will not be the same person. Week on week you will see the growth. So please please apply and look forward to a really, really great experience. Vidya?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would like to end with one of the book written by Professor Janaki Nair, The Promise of Metropolis. So मैं जो भी folk सुन रहे हैं हम लोग को लाइव या बाद में भी अगर इस तरह का कोई आपका कंसर्न हो तो आप यूएपी के साइट पे जा सकते हैं, IIHS के साइट पे जा सकते हैं.
Smita, do you have any more words for our audience?
So first of all, I'm very happy to host this AMA with Sube and all of you, Vidya, Sagar, Sharma, Devyani Ramamurthy and Shravani Bolage, because I think this is such an important conversation, even beyond actually the UFP application purpose, because we want to encourage larger groups of people from all across India to come into the UFP program. But it is larger because, as I said, we are excited to build this community of practitioners and researchers around the urban issues that are important to the Global South, especially India. Not just, again, as we have spoken today, the metro cities, but all across India, small towns, villages, wherever anyone comes from. So this is, I think, the beginning of a lot of different conversations that we look forward to. And I thank all of you for your time in joining us today. I thank the audience who have been listening on to this, and maybe we'll make the recordings available for future audience to also have a look at it. So thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful conversation.
Yes, and if
Thanks for
anyone
having us,
still has
Smita.
any queries, you can write to us at ufp.info@iihs.co.in.
And the last date for the application for the 22-23 UFP program is April 25th. Originally, it was April 11th, but it has been extended to the 25th to allow everyone a little bit more time to put in their essays and their sample work. So if you are one of them who's still thinking about whether you should complete your applications, and the answer is yes, please do complete your application, submit it. If you have any doubts, please feel free to call us on any of the numbers that we have on the website or email us.